Aren't you tired of hoping the right candidates see your job posts and apply?
So last September, this 2025, I turned 26 years old, and it was quite the experience. In large part because I had come home finally after 3 years of being in university, and I had a chance to see my family again and be around them and celebrate all the things that had happened, because I had an opportunity to do the things that I had the chance to do, go the places I had a chance to go, and be who I am today. I think for the most part, those are things worth celebrating. But something very strange has happened to me, worse off now than at any other point in my young life, which is that now I have way more dreams than I ever had. And I think this is quite strange, if not even more frightening, because I would have thought that by now, my expectations and what I thought reality could give me would have been filed down by what the world shows itself to be, the experiences that I had, and maybe I would have stopped seeing things as far more whimsical and rainbows and sunshines. But it turns out, no, I am, in fact, even more delusional now than I've ever been. And I don't feel safe in my own mind, in my own head, because it simply just doesn't make sense to me right now. And I didn't necessarily do it on purpose. I didn't become needlessly optimistic nor ambitious simply because it was something to do. I am this way because, believe it or not, I came across a career path and a passion now that I wasn't really privy to earlier in my life, and it wasn't naked enough for the world to deteriorate. But in fact, here I am. So when I started university, I took up international communication, film, and TV. And I remember in the first year, we got to play with some Blackmagic pocket cameras, pocket cameras, the 4K. And it was the first time I held, a semi or professional semi piece of equipment for filmmaking. It had a cheap Chinese lens at the front, and you could control the focus. You could open or close the aperture, and the image just looked like a film right off the bat. You could see the monitor, the image on the back of the screen. And at that time, something in me was really awakened. And I had spent my entire childhood and most of my young adult life consuming a lot of entertainment, watching a lot of films, a lot of documentaries. And it was always something that was distant from me. I had interest in it, hence I chose the course, but filmmaking was never really apparent to me as a career choice. So here I am, finally have bitten. Is that even proper English? I was bitten by the cinema bug, and all of a sudden, there's all that I wanted to do. I remember I then ended up texting my dad and did some research, and I said, "Oh, I really love the Sony FX30." And it wasn't a cheap thing. And I told him the price and everything. And he was like, "Okay, cool, give me some time." And by the grace of God, I finally got one. So now I had a camera in hand and I had a passion that was brewing. And fortunately, I was in university, so usually you get to meet a lot of people with similar interests, and you're more likely to go on random adventures when you're still in university. And by grace alone, I met an incredible set of people, um, classmates and streammates who all had varying disciplines and talents and interests, all wanted to, in large part, work with all of us as Since Yesterday. So we made like a small little production company called Since Yesterday Studios, where we just made films. It first started off with Megumi, and then it expanded to everybody else, the cast and crew, and then we later on had Ilham, and then by the end of our university life, we'd actually made what I think 4 or 5 films. And the most recent one, the first Netrunner, was an hour long. We really pushed ourselves. And so I found myself knee deep in a brand new passion that seemed to come to me easily. especially when it came to developing the stories and then directing and then editing, it really seemed to come from me, out of me, as just to pour out of a very large dish. So I fell in love with filmmaking. And the more that I did it, the more that I participated in it, the more that I saw a future in it. And, I'd made up my mind and said, okay, I'm going to become a filmmaker, whatever shape and form. That's what I'm going to do, primarily focusing on narrative fiction, narrative storytelling, and also, advertising and that kind of thing. So now that I've graduated, now that I am, in the real world, it's quite daunting that I don't have some sort of reasonable action plan. It's not like I don't have anything to do. No, I think I'm keeping myself occupied by writing and putting myself out there and trying to start like a media agency. I'm not sitting still. I'm not being idle, but I am still in pursuit of a dream. And why I call it a dream is because the heights at which I wish to reach are, few and far between, man. Very few people actually get there. And so many people compete for the same slots that I'm competing for. And also, it's not the most tangible and easy to accept career path, something more relatable or even understandable, like engineering or accounting or becoming a doctor, Even in my own personal bias, I find that most of those people tend to have an easier time, even with the current job market. But here I am being like, I want to make movies. And even then, I'm still signing up for jobs at agencies and trying to find places where I can show off my skill set. I built a portfolio over the years and I finally want to get it to use, but I can't help but feel a bit delusional by actively pursuing this career path. I don't really want to settle for anything else. I think I'll die inside if I choose not to pursue this. And I don't necessarily think that it'll be worth living. I know, a bit dramatic, a little bit dramatic, but when you have come so close to something that you really enjoy and that you're willing to sink so many hours into, it becomes so difficult to just see it as anything less than purpose, because it's not just passion, man. Some of the things that I've done for the sake of these projects, in combination with the people that have helped me along the way, I find it very hard to believe that God would bring me this far only to stop here. So I feel a little bit uneasy because the career path I've chosen hasn't been shaken down and scrutinized by hard hitting realities that I can't do something, or lack of opportunity, or lack of privilege. And even though I'm in a comparatively hopeless situation, I can't help but just still dream. You know what I mean? I really want to do this and I want to take it as far as I possibly can. And hopefully, by God's grace, I can get there. A part of me wishes that my dreams were a little bit simpler, easier, more accessible, and perhaps that my passions leaned towards something more tangible. But that's not the case. Neither do I really want it to be. But yeah, I'm afraid that it's a little too late for me to be dreaming, but I just started dreaming last night. So